Hey, I'm Trista Overby, psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, back with another video. This video is going to be titled Being Offensive or Being Offended. Now, I think that this is a very important topic to cover, especially for those who have endured trauma or have unresolved trauma that they're working through. Now, of course, I think that we all can agree that there is a such thing as a person being outlandishly rude or offensive. But what happens when there's a gray area? When a person says something without ill intent, with pure motive, yet you felt offended and others didn't. No matter what they said or how they said it to try to explain to you why they said what they said, someone still found offense in it. Doesn't mean that they did something wrong. No. It simply means that we all perceive things through our own lenses. And also, some people are just committed to misunderstanding you, and it has nothing to do with you. So let's look at some of the common reasons why people are so easily offended, yet others are not. Let's start with past life experiences. Now, past life experiences can also be seen as past traumatic experiences for some people. For example, let's say as a child that you were labeled or called disrespectful whenever you attempted to assert yourself, however that looked for you. And it's not necessarily saying that you were saying or doing anything wrong, but because your mother or father too grew up in environments to where a child asserting themselves, voicing their opinion was labeled disrespectful or talking back. So now, as you attempted to do that very same thing, which again, there's nothing wrong with a child asserting themselves, but because that belief that your parents hold from their past upbringing, they're now offended whenever you attempt to assert yourself. Next, let's move on to insecurities. Now, I'm sure we all have been there, done that when we see ourselves within the words of another, even if it wasn't directed towards us. Maybe we were unhappy with ourselves in a certain area that they were speaking on, and we felt personally attacked when we heard certain words or phrases that reminded us of that hidden insecurity. So instead of us taking what they said at face value, we begun to add more to it and made it what we wanted it to be to fit our insecurities and narrative. Next, let's look at values. Now, we all have values, whether we believe we do or not. It shows up constantly in what we say, our actions, in what we support, defend, etc. So let's say if a person is saying, doing, supporting, or defending something that they value strongly, but it goes against what we value and it doesn't align with what we expect of them based on, again, our values. We could easily become offended by what they're saying, doing, supporting, etc., especially if we have not allowed ourselves to be able to differentiate and allow others to differentiate and be individuals as well. Now, we have to remember that we live in a society where a lot of us have been conditioned to value the same things. And if we're not doing work to challenge those values, those beliefs, etc., it's so easy for us to get caught up in what I like to call group thinking, to where we think that everyone is supposed to value the same thing. So whenever someone goes against what we deem as being our value system and what they should value as well, we could easily become offended by their differences. All right, now this is a good one. Biases. Now, we live in a patriarchal society. If you don't know, now you know. We live in a patriarchal society. So let's say if a woman is assertive with a message, she's labeled angry, loud, etc. However, if a man relays that very same message, it's received better. It's more accepted because that person believes that it's okay for men to be assertive, angry, loud, and women are supposed to be quiet, timid, submissive, and nice in their speech and their tone. So seeing a woman that goes against the bias that we hold, it can offend us. Next, let's look at entitlement. Now, some people think that just because of their privilege in society that they're supposed to be treated in a special way. Example, a misogynistic man. He may feel entitled to date a woman of his preference simply because he has money and status. And in society, money and status mean that you have privilege. Yet, when his preference is disinterested in him, she's labeled too masculine, bitter, and called derogatory names by him because he felt entitled to be with her. So now he's offended. Lastly, let's look at behavioral beliefs. Now, I believe that this one ties all of the above that I spoke about into one. We live in a society where social norms exist. Conformity is real, y'all. And anyone that tries to buck the system and individualize themselves and step outside of the box, they're typically labeled a problem. Now, of course, there are certain behaviors that are expected from certain groups. For instance, I'll use myself as being a Black woman. Some people believe that all persons of a certain race should behave or think in similar ways when it comes to, for instance, politics. For instance, I've heard a lot that Black people can't be Republicans. And there are Black people who are Republicans. And what I typically notice is that there's a lot of shaming, rejecting of anyone who shares different political beliefs or behaviors in general. And this is all because they feel offended by what you believe and how you're behaving that goes against what we're told that we're supposed to do. Now, these are just some of the common reasons as to why we may find ourselves offended by something that others are not offended by. An important thing I think we all should remember on life's journey is that people are not responsible for our feelings, our insecurities, our triggers. We must get to a point within ourselves to where we're aware enough of our own insecurities, our own triggers, our own biases, core beliefs, etc., to know when they are creating a problem and take responsibility for them and our feelings and emotions that surrounds them, instead of making other people the scapegoat, the blame, or at fault for them. We are responsible for our own feelings, emotions, and triggers. People should not be required to dim their light, reduce or censor themselves to appease us or tiptoe around our triggers for us to be okay. Our feelings and our healing are our personal responsibility. So I pose the question to you today. Do you listen to understand and allow another person to have their perspective, or do you listen on defense, requiring others to check off your list of do's and don'ts so that you aren't offended? Allow other people to be who they are without boxing them into our box. Everyone wasn't raised or conditioned to live inside of the box. So it's damn near impossible, y'all, to not offend other people. It doesn't matter what you say, how you explain it. Some people are just simply going to be offended, and it has nothing to do with you. We all see things through our lens. We see the world through our lens. So let's not hold ourselves or others to these unrealistic expectations of not offending. It's impossible. Rise up out of the box so that you too can feel comfortable and free enough to be who you are, and allow others to do the same so that you can hear clearly with intent and not defense. Y'all, it's impossible to please everyone. Enjoy your day.